A powerful galactic alliance, known as the Collective, arrives at Earth demanding humanity. Join their ranks or face destruction. What they don't know is that humanity has spent decades preparing for this moment. When humans refuse and end the peace talks, they unleash technology and strategy that shakes the very foundation of galactic power. The story follows Commander Elena Voss and the Collective's Supreme Arbiter Kale, as they face off in a confrontation that will redefine humanity's place among the stars. Comparts Oncein Theravel. The uninvited guests' space around Earth looked different that morning. The stars seemed to shift and bend as massive ships tore through the fabric of reality itself. They arrived without warning, without permission, and without fear. The Collective had come to Earth. Commander Elena Voss stood in the command center of the orbital Defense Station Alpha. She was 40, 2 years old, with sharp green eyes and dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had spent 20 years in the United Earth Space Command. She had trained for this day her entire life. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations. Screens showed the alien fleet from every angle. There were 300 ships, each one massive beyond imagination. A message of dominance. The lead ship was called the Sovereign Dawn. It was twice the size of Earth's largest city. Its hull was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed along its surface in colors that hurt human eyes to look at directly. A communication signal came through. The face that appeared on the main screen was not human. Supreme Arbiter Kale was the leader of the Collective. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin. His eyes were completely black, like pools of deep space. He wore robes of silver that moved like liquid. People of Earth. Kale's voice was smooth and cold. I am Supreme Arbiter Kale of the Collective. We have observed your species for many years. You have developed faster than we expected. You have reached beyond your world. You have touched the stars. Elena watched him speak. She kept her face calm, but her mind was racing. Every word was being recorded. Every gesture was being analyzed by the best minds humanity had. The offer that wasn't really an offer. Kale continued speaking. The Collective is an alliance of 400 civilized species. We maintain order in this region of the galaxy. We ensure peace. We prevent chaos. Your species has now reached the level where you must make a choice. He paused. The pause was calculated, meant to create tension. Elena knew this tactic. She had studied the Collective's history. They had made this same speech to dozens of other species. You will join the Collective, Kale said. You will contribute your resources. You will follow our laws. You will accept our guidance. In return, we will protect you from threats. We will share some of our knowledge. We will allow your species to survive. Elena felt her jaw tighten. The way he said, allow your species to survive, made it clear what would happen if humanity refused. Earth's response. Kyle leaned forward slightly. You have 48 hours to send your leaders to the Sovereign Dawn for negotiation. We will discuss the terms of your integration. This is not a request. This is how it works. Every species joins the Collective eventually. Some join peacefully. Others join after we demonstrate our power. Choose wisely. The screen went dark. The command center was silent for a moment. Then Lieutenant Marcus Chen spoke up. He was Elena's second in command, a tactical genius with a mind for strategy. Commander, what are your orders? Elena turned to face her team. Contact the Earth Council. Tell them the collective is here. Tell them it's time to implement protocol. Osiris. A young officer named Sarah Park looked confused. Commander, what is Protocol Osiris? I've never heard of it. Elena smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. That's because it's been classified at the highest level for 35 years. But you're about to find out. The secret humanity kept, deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, in a facility that official records said did not exist, lights began to turn on. This base was called Sanctuary. It had been built in secret starting in 1990. When humanity first detected signals from other civilizations, when they first realized they were not alone, the world's governments made a decision. They would prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Dr. James Morrison stood in the main control room of Sanctuary. He was 70 years old, with white hair and tired eyes. He had given his entire adult life to this project. He had missed his children growing up. He had sacrificed everything to make sure humanity would be ready when the aliens came. All systems are responding, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the head of engineering. She was brilliant, one of the best minds on Earth. The fusion cores are stable. The quantum arrays are aligned. The neural network is online. James nodded slowly. He looked at the massive screens showing systems that no one outside this room knew existed. How long until we're at full operational capacity? 36 hours, Yuki answered. We'll be ready before the deadline. The peace talks begin. 48 hours later, a small shuttle left Earth. It carried 5 people. Ambassador David Chen was leading the delegation. He was 55 years old, a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties between nations his entire life. With him were 2 advisors, a military liaison, and Commander Elena Voss herself. As the shuttle approached the Sovereign Dawn, Elena looked out the window at the massive ship. It was beautiful in a cold, threatening way. She could see smaller ships moving around it, like insects around a hive. They docked in a bay that could have held 50 shuttles. Guards met them. Tall aliens in armor that looked organic, like it grew from their bodies. They did not speak. They just gestured for the humans to follow. The corridors of the Sovereign Dawn were enormous. The ceilings were 30 meters high. Everything was made of the same dark metal, smooth and cold to the touch. Strange lights pulsed along the walls in patterns that seemed almost alive. Inside the lion's den, they were led to a massive chamber. At the far end sat Supreme Arbiter Kale, on a throne made of crystalline material. Around the room stood representatives from dozens of alien species. Some were humanoid. Others were so strange that Elena's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. "Welcome?" Kale said. His voice echoed in the vast space. "Please, come forward." The human delegation walked to the center of the room. David Chen stepped forward to speak. "Supreme Arbiter, we appreciate the invitation to discuss." Kale held up one long finger. "There is nothing to discuss, Ambassador. I will tell you what humanity will provide. You will listen. You will agree. Then we will all move forward in harmony." Elena saw David's jaw clench. But he kept his voice calm. With respect, Supreme Arbiter, we would like to understand the terms before we agree to them. The terms of servitude. Kale waved his hand. A holographic display appeared in the air. It showed Earth, with markers on every continent. Earth will provide raw materials. Your planet is rich in elements we need. You will mine them and deliver quotas monthly. Another image appeared. It showed humans working in facilities. Your species shows aptitude for problem solving. You will provide workers for our manufacturing centers. 1 million of your people will be selected every year. David spoke carefully. Selected. You mean conscripted. Taken from their homes. Kale looked at him with those black eyes. They will be given the honor of serving the collective. This is how it works. All member species contribute. The third image showed Earth's military bases. You will dismantle your weapons. You will disable your defenses. The collective provides all security. Individual species do not need militaries. Elena felt her hands curl into fists behind her back. Everything they were asking for would make humanity helpless. They would be slaves in all but name. The hidden strength. David Chen looked at the terms for a long moment. Then he looked up at Kale. Supreme Arbiter, I need to consult with my government. May we have some time to discuss these terms? Kale leaned back on his throne. You have until tomorrow. Return here with your answer. I expect you to be reasonable. The human delegation was escorted back to their shuttle. Once inside and away from alien listening devices, David turned to Elena. Commander, tell me we have options. Elena's eyes were hard and bright. Ambassador, we have more than options. We have been preparing for this for 35 years. The question is not whether we can resist. The question is how much we want to hurt them when we do. David closed his eyes. Millions of people could die. Billions could become slaves. Elena replied. Our ancestors fought for freedom. They died for it. We won't throw that away, because some ancient empire thinks they own the galaxy. The decision. That night, the Earth Council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered virtually. The debate was fierce. Some wanted to negotiate, to find a compromise. Others wanted to fight immediately. The president of the Earth Council, Maria Santos, listened to everyone. Then she spoke. Our ancestors faced empires before. They faced tyranny. They faced those who said surrender or die. And every time, some chose to fight. Not because winning was certain, but because some things are worth fighting for. Freedom is one of those things. She looked around the virtual chamber. We vote now. Do we submit to the collective? Or do we show them that humanity bows to no one? The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 73% voted to refuse, to fight, to risk everything rather than accept slavery. Maria Santos looked at Elena through the video link. Commander Voss, humanity has made its choice. We leave the rest in your hands. Make us proud. Elena saluted. Humanity will not fall today. Madam President. I promise you that. The final meeting. The next day, the shuttle returned to the Sovereign Dawn. This time, Elena came alone. She requested a private meeting with Supreme Arbiter Kale. He agreed, amused by human boldness. They met in a smaller chamber, though it was still large enough to hold 100 people. Kale sat on a simple chair this time, trying to appear approachable. Commander Voss, I am surprised your ambassador did not return. Elena stood before him. Her uniform crisp, her posture military. Perfect. The ambassador has more important things to do. I came to deliver Earth's answer personally. Kale smiled. It was not a kind smile. And what is your answer? Elena looked him directly in those black eyes. No. The room went very quiet. Kyle's smile faded. No. No. Elena repeated. We will not join your collective. We will not provide resources. We will not send our people to your factories. We will not disarm. We reject every single term you offered. Kale stood slowly. He was much taller than Elena, nearly 2.5 meters. He looked down at her. You cannot be serious. You are one small planet. We are 400 civilizations. We have fleets that could turn your world to ash. The warning. Elena did not back down. Then try. But know this, Arbiter. You came here thinking we were weak. You thought we were children playing with spaceships. You were wrong. She took a step closer. For 35 years we have been watching you. Learning from you. Understanding how you think, how you fight, how your technology works. And for 35 years, we have been building something you cannot imagine. Kale laughed. It was a cold sound. What could you possibly build that would threaten the collective? We have technology that is thousands of years old. Elena smiled now. It was a dangerous smile. That's your weakness, Arbiter. Your technology is old. You stopped innovating because you didn't need to. You won every fight with what you already had. But we humans, we never stop improving. We never stop creating. And when we're scared, when we're threatened, we build miracles. She pulled out a small device and pressed it. The holographic display in the room changed. It showed data that made Kyle's eyes widen. What is this? That, Elena said, is just a tiny sample of what we've created. If you want to see the rest, attack us. Come to Earth with your fleet. Try to conquer us. And you will learn why humans have a saying. Never corner something smarter than you. Stoarm. KS. The gauntlet is thrown. Supreme Arbiter Kale stared at the data for a long moment. Then he looked back at Elena. His face was calm, but something flickered in those black eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps. Or maybe curiosity. You are bluffing, he said finally. This data could be fabricated. You show me numbers and claim power. But where is the proof? Elena tilted her head slightly. You want proof? Then bring your fleet to Earth. Test our defenses. See what happens. Kale's advisors, standing along the walls, began murmuring to each other. One of them, a reptilian creature with scales that shifted colors, stepped forward. Supreme Arbiter, perhaps we should investigate these claims before. Kale silenced him with a gesture. The collective does not negotiate with inferiors. We do not back down from primitive species. He looked back at Elena. You have made your choice. When your planet is burning, remember that you brought this upon yourselves. Elena nodded slowly. And when your fleet is destroyed, remember that you were warned. She turned and walked toward the door. You have 48 hours to leave our solar system. If you're still here after that, we'll consider it an act of war. And we will respond accordingly. She left the chamber without waiting for permission. behind her. She could hear Kale giving orders. The collective fleet would attack. It was inevitable now. Preparations on Earth. Back on Earth, Commander Alina Voss stood before the gathered leaders of humanity. The meeting was being held in the same underground facility, where humanity's greatest secrets were kept. President Maria Santos sat at the head of the table, her face grave. "Commander," Maria said, "you've forced their hand. The collective will attack within hours. Are we truly ready?" Alina looked around the room. She saw fear in some faces, determination in others, but no one was suggesting surrender now. That bridge had been burned. "Madam President, we are as ready as we will ever be. The systems have been tested. The crews are trained. And our strategy is sound." General Thomas Wright, the head of Earth's military forces, leaned forward. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and scars from battles fought before humanity reached the stars. "Commander, you've seen their fleet. 300 massive warships. What makes you confident we can stop them?" Alina pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's solar system with hundreds of markers. "General, the collective thinks they're fighting us. They're wrong. They're fighting everything we've become over the past 35 years. She pointed to the markers. "These are the Sentinel platforms. We've built 400 of them throughout the solar system. Each one is hidden, shielded, invisible to their sensors. Each one carries weapons that use quantum disruption technology." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who had joined the meeting, stood to explain. "The quantum disruptors work by destabilizing the molecular bonds in whatever they hit. It doesn't matter how strong your armor is. When the bonds holding your atoms together break down, your ship ceases to exist. The collective fleet advances, in space." Supreme Arbiter Kale stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn. Around him, his officers prepared for battle. 300 warships were moving into attack formation. It was the largest fleet the collective had sent against a single planet in decades. Status report. Kale commanded. His tactical officer, a being made of crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light, responded. "All ships are in position, Supreme Arbiter. Weapons are charged. Shields are at maximum. We are ready to begin the bombardment." Kale looked at the planet on his viewing screen. Earth looked so small, so vulnerable. He had done this many times before. Show overwhelming force. Destroy a few cities. Wait for the surrender. It always worked. Begin the attack. Target their major population centers. Make it quick but painful. The fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a mountain, shot toward Earth. The beams crossed millions of kilometers in seconds. The aliens expected to see cities vanish. They expected to hear humans screaming for mercy. Instead, something impossible happened. Earth's shield activates. Around Earth, the air seemed to shimmer. A barrier of pure energy appeared, surrounding the entire planet like a soap bubble made of light. The collective's weapons struck the barrier and simply stopped. The energy was absorbed, redirected, harmlessly dissipated. On the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, alarms began to sound. The tactical officer's crystalline structure flickered with confusion. "Supreme Arbiter, our weapons had no effect. The planet is protected by some kind of energy shield. The power readings are. They're impossible. No species should be able to generate this much energy. Kale leaned forward, gripping the arms of his command chair. Impossible. Nothing is impossible. Increase power. Focus all fire on a single point. Overload their shield. The fleet concentrated their attack. 300 ships, all firing at the same spot. The energy output was staggering. It was enough power to crack a planet's crust. But the shield held firm. It didn't even flicker. The Sentinels wake. In the command center on Earth, Alina watched the alien attack with satisfaction. They're doing exactly what we predicted. All their ships are clustered together, focusing on the shield. They've forgotten the first rule of warfare. Lieutenant Marcus Chen smiled. Never bunch up when you don't know where the enemy is. Alina nodded. Activate the Sentinels. Let's show them what fear feels like. Throughout the solar system, 400 hidden platforms came online. They had been built on asteroids, inside moons, even in the rings of Saturn. Each one had been waiting for this moment. Now they received their orders. The Sentinels opened fire. The first ship to die was on the edge of the fleet. It was called the Eternal Judgment, a cruiser that had conquered 7 planets. One moment it was firing at Earth. The next moment, a beam of pale blue light touched its hull. The ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply came apart. The molecular bonds holding it together failed. Metal turned to powder. The ship disintegrated into a cloud of atoms. Panic sets in. 300,000 crew members died in an instant. They didn't even have time to scream. On the Sovereign Dawn, the tactical officer was receiving reports he couldn't understand. Supreme Arbiter, we've lost the Eternal Judgment. The ship just fell apart. There was no explosion. It just stopped being a ship. Before Kale could respond, another ship died. Then another. The Sentinels were firing from every direction. The collective fleet was surrounded. Ships tried to turn to find the source of the attacks, but the Sentinels were invisible to their sensors. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Kale shouted.
Scatter! Don't stay clustered.
But it was too late. The fleet was too large, too close together. Ships bumped into each other trying to escape. And every few seconds, another vessel simply ceased to exist. The pale blue beams were precise, relentless, unstoppable. General Zara Toth, Kyle's second in command, was a warrior from a species that had never known fear. She had fought in 100 battles. But now, watching her fleet die without being able to fight back, she felt something cold in her chest. Supreme Arbiter, we need to retreat. We need to leave this system now. Cal's pride fought with his survival instinct. To retreat would be to admit failure. The collective had never retreated, but his fleet was being torn apart. In less than 5 minutes, he had lost 30 ships. 30 ships. And they hadn't even damaged the enemy. The second wave. All ships. Fall back to. Kale started to order. But then new alarms sounded. The tactical officer's voice was high with panic. Supreme Arbiter, we're detecting new contacts. Ships are emerging from the planet itself. Alina had planned for the collective to try to retreat. That's why the second phase of Earth's defense was already launching. From hidden bays beneath the oceans and inside mountains, humanity's fleet emerged. These were not the primitive spacecraft the collective had seen in their intelligence reports. These were warships built with technology 5 years in the making. 100 ships rose from Earth. They were smaller than the collective's vessels, but they were fast. Incredibly fast. They used gravity drives that bent space around them. They could accelerate faster than anything the collective had ever seen. And they were armed with weapons specifically designed to counter collective shields. Captain Amara Okonkwo commanded the lead ship, the Defiance. She was 35 years old, born the same year Protocol Osiris began. She had trained her entire life for this battle. Now, as her ship shot into space, she felt a fierce joy. All ships, this is Defiance. Engage at will. Show them what humanity can do. The hunters become the hunted. The human ships didn't fly in formation. They moved like a swarm, each one independent but coordinated. They darted between the collective vessels, too fast to track. Their weapons were devastating. Plasma torpedoes that phased through shields. Rail guns that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Missiles that carried quantum disruptors. The collective fleet tried to fight back. They had thousands of years of military tradition. They had tactics that had won countless wars. But nothing worked. The humans were too fast, too agile. They attacked from unexpected angles. They used the debris from destroyed ships as cover. They employed strategies the collective had never seen. Kale watched his fleet die. Ship after ship. The finest vessels in the galaxy, reduced to clouds of atoms or torn apart by weapons they couldn't defend against. His warriors, proud soldiers from species that had ruled stars for millennia, were dying helplessly. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are a young species. How can they be this powerful?" Zaratoth, standing beside him, had tears running down her face. Her people didn't cry often, only when something broke their spirit. "Supreme Arbiter, we must retreat. If we stay, we all die." Kale looked at her. His black eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. True fear. Order all ships to retreat. Maximum speed. Get us out of this system. No escape. The collective fleet tried to run. Ships turned away from Earth, activating their fastest engines. They tried to reach the edge of the solar system, where they could jump to faster, then light travel. But the human ships pursued them. The sentinels kept firing. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to be safe. The Sovereign Dawn, being the largest and slowest ship, fell behind. Human ships swarmed around it like wolves around a wounded bear. They didn't destroy it immediately. They disabled its weapons one by one. They knocked out its shields. They crippled its engines. They wanted Kale alive. They wanted him to understand what humanity was capable of. Captain Amara brought the Defiance alongside the massive ship. Through the viewports, she could see the aliens inside scrambling, panicking. She opened a communication channel. "Supreme Arbiter Kale, this is Captain Amara Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Ship Defiance. Your vessel is disabled. Your fleet is destroyed. You will surrender now, or we will finish what we started." On the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, Kale sat slumped in his command chair. Around him, systems were failing. Smoke filled the air. Officers were dead or wounded. The mighty flagship of the collective had been reduced to a helpless wreck in less than an hour. He activated his personal communicator. His voice was hoarse. "I surrender. I surrender. Please, stop the attack." The cost of arrogance. Alina Voss stood in the command center on Earth, watching the battle end. Around her, her team was silent. They had won. Against impossible odds. Against an empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Humanity had won. But there was no celebration. They all knew what this meant. They had just changed the galaxy forever. Marcus Chen broke the silence. "Commander, we're receiving the casualty reports. We lost 3 ships. 240. 7 crew members dead. The Sentinel platforms are all intact. The shield held without any problems." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 240, 7 names. 240, 7 families who would grieve. But they had saved billions. They had preserved humanity's freedom. "Honor them," she said quietly. "Make sure everyone knows their names, knows what they sacrificed." She opened her eyes and looked at the main screen. It showed the Sovereign Dawn being escorted by human ships. "Bring Kale to Earth. We need to have a conversation about the future." A new order begins. 3 hours later, Supreme Arbiter Kyle stood in chains before the Earth Council. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The proud leader of an ancient empire was now a prisoner. Around him, guards stood ready. These were human soldiers. But they carried weapons that Kale now. Anu could kill him instantly. President Maria Santos looked at him with no pity in her eyes. "Supreme Arbiter, your fleet came to our world with demands. You threatened our people. You attempted to enslave us. By the laws of every civilization, including your own, you are guilty of attempted conquest. The penalty should be death." Kale said nothing. What could he say? Maria continued. "But we are not you. We do not kill prisoners. We do not seek vengeance. We seek justice. You will be tried for your crimes. Your empire will answer for what it has done to hundreds of other species. And a new order will emerge in this galaxy." She leaned forward. "The collective's reign is over. Humanity will make sure of that. We will free the species you enslaved. We will end the system you built. And if any empire tries to replace you, if anyone else tries to conquer and enslave, they will face the same fate as you." Alina Voss stood beside the president. She looked at Kale and felt something unexpected. Not hatred. Not triumph. Just sadness. "You came here thinking you were the apex predator," she said. "You forgot that somewhere in the galaxy, there's always something stronger. Today, you met something stronger. Tomorrow, the whole galaxy will know that humanity will not kneel." The room was silent. Then Kale spoke for the first time. His voice was broken. "What have you done? What have you unleashed?" Elena smiled sadly. "We've freed ourselves. And in doing so, we've shown every enslaved species in the galaxy that freedom is possible. Your empire will fall, Arbiter. Not just because we destroyed your fleet, but because we gave hope to those you oppressed. And hope, once lit, cannot be extinguished. The message spreads. Within hours, the story of what happened at Earth spread across the galaxy. The collective tried to suppress it, but they failed. Too many species had been watching. Too many had seen the impossible happen. A young species, barely able to travel between stars, had destroyed the most powerful fleet in known space. On worlds that had been conquered by the collective, people began to whisper. They began to hope. They began to plan. If humans could resist, maybe they could too. If one species could say no and survive, maybe freedom was not just a dream. The collective's control began to crack. Not all at once. Not everywhere. But slowly, inevitably, the empire that had ruled for thousands of years started to crumble. And at the center of it all was Earth, a small blue planet that had refused to bow. A world that had been underestimated and had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not weapons or shields. It was the refusal to accept slavery. It was the determination to stay free, no matter the cost. Commander Alina Voss stood looking out at the stars from the command center. Marcus Chen joined her. What happens now, Commander? Elena thought about that question. They had won one battle. But there was a whole galaxy out there. Some would see humanity as liberators. Others would see them as threats. The future was uncertain, dangerous, full of challenges. But it was theirs to shape. It was free. Now, she said, we make sure this never happens again. We help others find their strength. We build a galaxy where species cooperate. Because they choose to, not because they're forced. We show everyone that there's a better way. She turned to look at him. And if anyone tries to conquer Earth again, if anyone tries to threaten our freedom, or anyone else's, we remind them of today. We remind them that humanity doesn't start fights, but we finish them. In the distance, the stars shone bright and beautiful. They held endless possibilities, endless dangers, endless adventures. Humanity had just taken its first real step into that vast universe. And the galaxy would never be the same.